My name is Malik. I'm 28, live in a small town just outside of Columbus, Ohio, and work full-time in an auto shop. Nothing fancy. We fix engines, transmissions, brakes, that kind of stuff. My hands are always greasy, my shirts always smell like oil, and I honestly like it that way. No office politics, no fake smiles, just work. I've been doing this for about 6 years now. Got into it after dropping out of community college. Wasn't for me. I rent a small place above a bakery. Smells like cinnamon every morning. I live alone, not really dating anyone right now. I've had a couple of relationships, but nothing that stuck. Maybe it's me. Maybe I just never met someone real enough to stop pretending with. A couple of weeks ago, this car pulls up to the shop. A dark gray Audi A4 2017, clean as hell. I hear it before I see it. There's a soft grinding when she turns into the lot. Transmission issue, I think. Then she steps out. I don't mean to sound dramatic, but she wasn't like other clients. Not the fancy lady in a fancy car type. She didn't look around like she was too good to be there. She wasn't in heels or trying to impress anybody. Just jeans, sneakers, a green long-sleeve hair tied up. But it was the way she carried herself calm, like she didn't owe the world an explanation. Transmission feels weird, she said, slipping between second and third. I nodded. Could be your clutch packs. Mind if I run a quick scan? She handed me the key fob. Take your time. I'll just wait here. Most people take a walk or go get coffee. We got a diner across the street, some chain cafes a few blocks down, but she just sat in the waiting area, phone in hand, legs crossed. She wasn't scrolling like most people. She was reading, actually reading. Her name was Ariel. I remember checking the repair order and thinking, pretty name. She looked about 30, maybe 32, no ring on her finger. But when I got into the car to pull it into the garage, I noticed something. A ring tucked into the little tray under the dash. A wedding ring. She had taken it off. I didn't think much of it at the time. Maybe she just didn't like wearing it. Maybe she was divorced. Maybe she was still married and just needed space. Not my business. I ran diagnostics. Sure enough, worn clutch plates and signs of early valve body failure. That wasn't cheap. I came back out and sat next to her, told her what I found. She nodded slowly and asked how long it would take. I told her 2 days max. She said okay and signed the paperwork. Before leaving, she turned to me and smiled. Not flirtatiously, just real, like someone who hadn't had a real conversation in a while and appreciated not being treated like a problem. She said thank you and left. 10 minutes later, I was back inside the car, moving it into a stall. That's when I saw it, a flash drive wedged between the seat and the console. It had a small label, personal, black scratched up, nothing special. I figured she must have dropped it. I pulled it out and walked over to the front desk. Our receptionist, Cam, looked up and raised an eyebrow. Left behind, he asked. Yeah, I got to call her. But I didn't. I waited. I don't know why. Maybe because it had her name on it. Maybe because I'd seen the way she looked at that ring before leaving, the way people look at something that used to mean everything but doesn't anymore. I left the flash drive in my desk drawer, just for now. The next day I was under the hood of an old Chevy when I heard the bell above the office door. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked over. There she was again. Ariel, same green top, no makeup, no pretense. I think I left something behind, she said. My brain blanked for a second. Oh, yeah, I think I have it. I opened the drawer and handed it over. She took it, but instead of leaving, leaned against the desk and looked at me. I left it on purpose, she said. Just like that, no hesitation. I stared at her. Why? Because I wanted to know if you'd hold on to it or toss it or open it. She paused. Most people would have opened it. I didn't. I know. She smiled. That's why I came back. Then she did the last thing I expected. She gave me her number. Text me when you're off work, unless that would be weird. It wouldn't, I said. I didn't even try to play it cool. I just said it. She left and I stood there for a good 10 minutes, staring at the door like a complete idiot. That night, I texted her around 7:40 that evening. Nothing complicated. Hey, it's Malik from the shop. I stared at the screen for a second, then added, hope I didn't take too long. She responded less than a minute later. I was wondering if you'd text. Glad you did. Then she sent the address of a small cafe about 15 minutes from my place. Quiet spot, not one of those chain places. It looked like the kind of cafe that had one guy playing soft acoustic guitar in the corner and sold $4 cookies. I threw on a clean flannel and headed out. She was already there when I arrived, sitting near the back, tucked in a corner booth. Legs crossed under the table, sipping what looked like chamomile tea. No makeup again, just her. "Hey," I said, sliding into the seat across from her. "Hey yourself," she said with a little smile. "You're punctual. You're brave inviting a mechanic out to one of the nicest cafes in town." She shrugged. "I like people who fix things." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just smiled. The first 10 minutes were light work, weather-weird customers. I told her about a guy who once brought in a car with raccoons living in the engine bay. She laughed, not the polite kind, real laughter. That was the first time I saw her let go a little. Then the conversation shifted. She leaned forward, resting her arms on the table. "You saw the ring," she said. I hesitated. "Yeah, I wasn't snooping. It was just there." "It's okay. I left it out on purpose. I wanted to see if you'd ask, and you didn't. Most guys would have. Most people see something unusual and need an explanation. You didn't. Not my business." "That's what made it interesting," she said. She took a breath, looked down at her tea, then back at me. Her eyes were steady, honest. "I was married for almost 7 years. His name's Tanner. We were high school sweethearts. Everyone thought we were perfect, the kind of couple people expected to last. But no one sees what happens when the door closes. Not really." She paused. I didn't push. She kept talking. "Tanner's the kind of guy who knows how to be charming when he wants to be. He's smart, ambitious, and completely detached emotionally. He cheated 3 times that I know of. Lied about it twice. The third time, he didn't even deny it. Just said, 'You knew who I was when you married me.'" "Damn," I said low. "I stayed a year after that. I kept trying to make it work. You tell yourself it's just a phase. You blame yourself. You adjust. You shrink. You become small enough to fit into someone else's version of who they want you to be." There was no bitterness in her voice, just exhaustion, like someone who'd already spent all their anger. "What made you leave?" I asked. "He stopped noticing I was even in the room," she said. "And then one day I realized I wanted to be in a room where someone saw me again." I didn't mean to say what came next. It just came out of me like it had been sitting in my chest since the moment I met her. "If I were him, I'd never let you go." She looked up at me, quiet still. For a second, I thought I went too far. Then she said, "Then show me." Just like that. No flirtation, no seduction, just an invitation to prove I meant what I said. I didn't know what to do. I sat there, frozen coffee in hand, trying to read her expression. But she gave me nothing more. Just stood, picked up her bag, and slid a small piece of paper across the table. "Tomorrow, 7:30, my street. Walk past, you'll know." She walked out without another word. I sat there for another 10 minutes. The next day, I tried to focus at work. Couldn't. Changed brakes on a Civic and nearly forgot to tighten the lug nuts. Cam called me out. Dario asked if I needed the day off. I said no. By 6:50, I was in my truck. I didn't even need GPS. I looked up her address last night out of curiosity. Quiet neighborhood, old houses, lots of trees. I parked a block away. Didn't want to look like I was showing up for a date. I walked slowly. My heart was in my throat. I didn't even know what I was expecting. Then I saw it. One house, white siding, dark blue shutters, porch light on. A single window upstairs opened just enough to let the curtain flutter in the breeze. I slowed down. The porch light blinked once. I stopped, then kept walking. At the gate, I hesitated. She hadn't told me what to do. She hadn't told me to knock, just said walk past. But when I got close to the steps, the front door opened. She was standing there barefoot in jeans and a black tea, hair down, no makeup, no words. She stepped aside and let the door stay open. I walked in. She closed the door behind me. The first thing I noticed inside her house was the silence. Not an uncomfortable kind, just stillness, like a place that had learned to breathe on its own. No TV on in the background, no music, no buzzing appliances, just quiet. The air smelled faintly like lavender and wood polish. She didn't say anything at first. She walked past me toward the kitchen and gestured slightly. "Take your shoes off if you want." I did left them by the door. The house was simple, lived in, but not messy. Clean shelves framed black and white photos, a few candles burned low, a dog-eared copy of East of Eden on a coffee table. The kind of place someone builds slowly after too much chaos. She moved around the kitchen, opening cabinets, pulling out a pan. I didn't plan anything fancy, she said. Hope you're okay with ramen. I smiled. Honestly, that's perfect. She started boiling water, still not looking at me directly. I sat at the edge of the couch, unsure of where to place my hands. You ever bring people here? I asked. No, she said, pouring the noodles in. I don't really do this open door thing. She paused, stirred. I don't really invite people in. Not since Tanner. Not after how that ended. I nodded slowly, even though she still wasn't looking at me. You said you left because he stopped seeing you. He did, she said, but I also stopped seeing myself. She turned off the stove, let the pot sit for a second. Then she turned around, leaned on the counter, and looked right at me. I didn't ask you to come to prove anything, she said. I just wanted to see if you would. I almost didn't, I admitted. I stood outside for a full minute. I know, she said. I was watching through the curtain. I laughed under my breath. So what now? She shrugged, walked over, sat on the armchair across from me, and handed me a bowl. Now we eat. So we did on opposite sides of the living room. No music, just ramen and quiet conversation. She asked about my life. I told her the truth that I hadn't gone to college, that I almost did for mechanical engineering, but bailed after a semester, that I liked working with my hands, liked fixing things people gave up. On that, I didn't talk to my father anymore, and that my mom had moved to Arizona. I told her about the bakery downstairs from my apartment, about how every morning smelled like cinnamon, and about the woman who owned it, a 70-year-old widow named Ruth, who gave me leftover scones and told me I looked too thin for someone who fixes cars. She laughed, and I saw her shoulders drop a little, like the armor she'd been holding for years was starting to crack even just a little. She told me she worked as an office manager for a mid-sized property firm, said the job was fine, but the people were exhausting that. Since the divorce, everyone either pitied her or gossiped behind her back. I think I miss being invisible, she said. Before the ring, before the drama, just unnoticed. I set my bowl down. I noticed you, I said. She looked at me. For a long moment, neither of us said anything. Then she leaned back, looked up at the ceiling and said, I didn't bring you here for anything physical. Malek, I just wanted to sit across from someone who doesn't need to be told what I've been through to know it hurt. I didn't come here expecting anything, I said quietly. I just didn't want to leave you wondering if anyone ever would show up. She looked back at me. You weren't supposed to stay, you know. I know, but I'm glad you did. It was late before either of us realized it. She stood stretched and said, You can crash on the couch if you want. Extra blankets in the hallway closet. Are you sure? Yeah, she said. You're probably safer here than out driving half asleep. She handed me a pillow and a folded quilt. I took them without protest. A few minutes later, she disappeared into the hallway. I turned off the lamp, lay back on the couch, and stared at the ceiling. I didn't sleep right away. The house creaked like old houses do. A wind pushed through the trees outside. Somewhere a dog barked once and went quiet. Then I heard the faintest sound of a door opening upstairs, soft footsteps, a light clicking off, then silence again. I didn't know what that moment meant exactly, but I knew I hadn't imagined it. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, and found her in the kitchen, in an oversized gray sweater, hair a mess, holding two mugs. Black, right? She asked. I nodded. She handed it to me, then placed something on the table near the couch. It was her wedding ring on top of a folded piece of paper. I picked it up. The note said in small, neat handwriting, not wearing it anymore and not going back. I looked up at her. She didn't say anything, just sipped her coffee and looked out the window. That was the morning I realized she wasn't trying to escape her past anymore. She was just ready to live without dragging it behind her. I didn't see it coming. That's the part that still gets me. The days after that morning were quiet. We didn't define anything. I didn't ask, what are we to? And she didn't try to act like anything had changed, but it had. We started texting every day. She'd drop off coffee at the shop sometimes before work. I'd swing by her place after mine, help her change light bulbs or fix that rattling cabinet door in the kitchen. Little things, normal things. Then on a Tuesday, Tanner showed up. I was under a Chevy Tahoe, oil dripping down my sleeve, when I saw a pair of polished dress shoes stop at the edge of the lift. Sharp black pants, perfect crease cologne that didn't belong anywhere near a mechanic's bay. I slid out and sat up, wiping my hands. He didn't introduce himself, just looked at me like I was some curiosity he hadn't decided how to judge yet. "You, Malik." "Yeah." Long pause. "You're the one who's been seeing Ariel." I stood up slowly, tossing the rag onto the tool cart. "I don't think that's any of your business." "Probably not," he said, smiling without warmth. "But I like to know who's sniffing around my leftovers." I took a breath, tried not to rise to it. "You've got a lot of nerve coming here," I said, "especially after how you treated her." "Oh, so she gave you the sob story?" he asked. "Let me guess. Poor neglected wife, cold husband, loveless marriage. That one never gets old." I stepped closer. "If you came here to talk about her like that, you should turn around." He looked amused. "Relax. I'm not here to start anything. Just wanted to see what kind of guy she downgraded to." And then he left, just like that, walked out with the same smug confidence he walked in with, like he owned the air in the room. That night, I didn't tell Ariel. I didn't want to stress her, but something shifted. 2 days later, I was at her place. She was curled up on the couch, legs tucked under her, flipping through some home design magazine. I was sitting on the floor, tightening the screws on her coffee table. The leg had gotten wobbly again. "You're quiet," she said. I nodded. "Saw someone at the shop." She looked up. "Who told you?" "Tanner." Her whole body stiffened. The air changed. "What did he say?" "Nothing worth repeating." She set the magazine down. "He always hated when I left the house without warning. Made him feel out of control. So if he showed up at your work, it means he's spiraling." "I'm not afraid of him." "I know," she said, "but I am. Physically, just emotionally. He doesn't hit. He doesn't scream. He just manipulates. He knows exactly what to say to make you question yourself." I moved closer, sat beside her. "He doesn't control you anymore." She looked at me for a long moment. "I want to believe that." Late that night, we were upstairs in her bedroom, not sleeping together, not like that. I'd started staying over a few nights a week, just sleeping on the couch or sometimes in her guest room. That night, she said I could sleep upstairs if I wanted, just to be near, just in case. She fell asleep first. Sometime around 2:00 a.m., I woke to the sound of glass breaking. At first, I thought I imagined it, but then I heard something else, a metallic clang, like something had been thrown against the porch railing. I jumped out of bed and ran downstairs barefoot. Ariel was right behind me, wrapped in a blanket. The front window, the small one near the entryway, was cracked. A rock on the floor wrapped in paper. I picked it up. On the note in bold black ink were the words, "You broke the rules. I don't forget." Ariel just stood there staring at it. "I'm calling the cops," I said. "No." Her voice was low but firm. "Ariel." "No police. He'll twist it. He always does. He'll say I'm unstable, that I'm acting out, that I'm dragging people into drama. He came to my job. He just threw a rock through your window. That's not drama. That's harassment." "I know, but if we give him a reaction, he wins." I hated how calm she looked, like she'd been through this before. I cleaned up the glass while she made tea. No one said much after that, Sean. Around 4 a.m., we sat in the kitchen, neither of us able to sleep. "He didn't love me," she said suddenly. "He loved the way I made him look. That's what he's trying to protect." I reached across the table and took her hand. She didn't flinch. "You're not going back to that," I said. "I know," she whispered. "But part of me still feels like I'm doing something wrong." "You're not." She squeezed my hand. "Then why does it still feel like guilt?" I didn't have an answer, but I stayed. Later that morning, she handed me her spare key. "Keep it," she said, "just in case." I put it on my key ring without saying a word. I wasn't going anywhere. After the night with the rock through the window, everything slowed down. Not in a bad way, just quieter, more intentional. Ariel didn't rush to fix the window. She left it cracked for 3 days like a scar she wasn't quite ready to cover up. I started staying over more often, at first on the couch, then in the guest room, and then after a week she stopped saying anything when I crawled into bed beside her. We didn't talk about it. It just happened like two people who finally stopped pretending they didn't want to be close. The cops never came. We never filed a report. Tanner didn't show up again. But we knew he might. That Saturday, I was back at work underneath a lifted Dodge Ram when Dario crouched beside me, waved a wrench in the air. "You good?" "Yeah," I said. He looked at me. "Really?" I looked back. "You're different lately." "In a good way," I shrugged, trying to be. "You ever hear what they say about how a man changes when he loves someone, right?" he asked. I wiped sweat from my forehead. "No." Dario grinned. "He shuts up more, listens, better works, steadier, and holds her hand like it's the last solid thing in a burning building." I laughed under my breath. "Sounds dramatic." "It is," he said. "Love usually is." When I got off work that night, I went straight to Ariel's. She was on the porch sitting on the swing reading. Same copy of East of Eden. She'd been rereading it chapter by chapter. Said it hit differently now. I sat beside her and we didn't speak for a while. Then she said, "I got offered a promotion at work today." "Yeah." "Senior office manager, bigger clients, more hours, higher stress." "You going to take it?" She shook her head. I told him no. "Why?" She turned to me. "Because for the first time in years, my life doesn't feel like I'm trying to prove anything to anyone." I didn't say anything. I just reached over, slid my fingers into hers, and we stayed like that, palms pressed thumb, moving slowly across the back of her hand. Later that week, we went out to dinner. Not a fancy place, just this Italian spot with too many Christmas lights hanging from the ceiling. Ariel wore a simple blue dress. I showed up in a black button-down she once said made me look almost like I had my life together. After dinner, we walked a couple of blocks through the neighborhood. She stopped in front of a quiet house with the "For Rent" sign out front. "This place has been empty for weeks," she said. "I called the owner just to ask." I looked at her. "You thinking of moving?" She nodded. "With you." It hit me like a punch and a hug at the same time. "You sure?" I asked. She smiled. "You ever notice how you hold my hand?" I blinked. "What?" "The way you hold on," she said. "You don't grip. You just stay." I think I've spent most of my life with people who didn't know how to stay. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "I know." We signed a lease a week later. Not a huge place, but cozy backyard, a little porch room to grow. On move-in day, Dario stopped by the shop and handed me an old toolbox. "Housewarming," he said. I opened it full of stuff I already had, but under the tray was a folded napkin. On it, written in Sharpie, "She's not broken. She just needed someone who didn't try to fix her." That night, Ariel and I sat on the floor in our new living room, eating takeout from cardboard containers, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "You know," she said, "if someone told me a year ago I'd be sitting on the floor with a mechanic, covered in dust, eating noodles in a house I actually like, I'd have laughed." "You still can," I said. "I don't want to. I just want to stay here." We didn't get married that year. There was no ring, no proposal, no Instagram announcement. But 3 months later, Yahima, I changed my mailing address. 6 months after that, she handed me a second key to her office. And a year later, we adopted an old beagle named Sunday. We built a life not with grand gestures, but with little ones. She never put the old wedding ring back on. The story of Malik and Ariel reveals a profound life lesson. True connection begins when you choose to show up without trying to fix someone's past. Malik, a mechanic with oil-stained hands, and Ariel, a woman carrying the weight of a broken marriage, found each other in the quiet moments of authenticity. Ariel's deliberate act of leaving her flash drive and ring wasn't just a test. It was her way of seeking someone who respected her story without demanding to rewrite it. Malik's choice to hold space for her to listen without judgment and to stay even when her ex's shadow loomed teaches us that love isn't about grand heroics. It's about the steady, unglamorous work of being present. Ariel's journey from shrinking to fit her ex's world to reclaiming her own space reminds us that healing comes when we stop proving ourselves to others. Their story shows that the people who matter don't need you to be more than you are. They just need you to be real. Malik's quiet strength and Ariel's courage to trust again inspire us to embrace our own vulnerabilities and build lives rooted in trust and intention. So dare to stay, to listen, to love someone not for who they could be, but for who they are right now. Have you ever had a moment where being yourself changed everything? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. If this touched your heart, subscribe and join our community for more stories that remind us what really matters. Let's keep inspiring each other.